Oh, this is a good video to watch.
So everything is coming crashing down. All of the narratives are collapsing. All of the defenses are being completely undone. And remember how everybody was going around calling Nick Shirley and saying that, implying that he was some weird like child, like predator or something like that for wanting to record these kids, and they were trying to reframe it. They said there's no evidence that any of this is fraudulent. None of this has happened. It's all a lie. Well, guess what?
Today is a big day. We're here in Minnesota, back with the legend David. Today's a big day because today here in Minnesota, over 10 people are being charged for fraud that they have committed here inside the state of Minnesota. And a few of these people are being charged with autism and daycare, childcare fraud. Over $40 million in autism fraud. And
I like how some of these people are being charged with autism, and then he continues, and it then makes sense, but charging someone with autism, I thought was hilarious.
And daycare for fraud that they have committed here inside the state of Minnesota. And a few of these people are being charged with autism.
Few of these people, read the subtitles, have been charged with autism.
Autism and daycare, childcare fraud. Over $40 million in autism fraud. And one of the main ladies in the video that me and David made, she has been caught with over $4 million. Her last daycare...
Literally the exact person they went after.
Last year, her daycare received $3.67 million, and now she has been criminally charged for child care.
This is satisfying for me because I watched fraud like this in all types of ways go on for years. And first of all, most people didn't even know about it because mainstream didn't report it, and nothing was ever done about it. Now we have people know about it thanks to Nick Shirley and then Asmongold covering it and Elon Musk retweeting it, and we have stuff being done about it. But it's also a perfect example of what I mean about the media being the problem. The first step to fixing any and all of this is coverage and alerting the people to what's going on. Like the UK people, if that map of all the crimes being committed by migrants was known to the UK people, attitudes would be very different. There'd be no... People would start being deported en masse. The problem would solve itself. The reason that isn't happening is the media that still to this day continues to cover it up.
Air fraud here inside the state of Minnesota. And this is some of the highest amount of fraud that's ever been charged inside of this district. This is Ilhan Omar's district here in Minnesota. And on top of that, they're bringing about 2 new cases.
The problem with ground news is there are some stories where people on the left and people on the right both don't report on it. That there is a coordinated silence between all parties, like this Minnesota fraud. It was Nick Shirley, not left or right mainstream media that covered it. It was Nick Shirley, a YouTuber, and Asmongold, and other independent people that really brought awareness to it. So ground news isn't going to help you get the truth if the truth is being kept from you from both the left and the right.
Cases of fraud that have actually never been criminally charged inside of the Medicare programs here inside
fraud
of Minnesota. This is a big deal. David, you're here with us. What does this say?
This is phenomenal to see the progression that things are happening after the release of our videos. And that woman who was criminally charged, by the way, she was caught at the airport with a one-way ticket to London. She was getting out of Dodge and they stopped her. And now
roaching out. She almost got away.
She's been charged not only with defeating a future fraud, but she's...
What I'm waiting for is some of these people to start singing about who helped them set all this up.
the first person charged with child care fraud. It's a big deal.
This is a big deal, and they're going to be doing these press conferences right now. We're going to be breaking it all down. We're going to be interviewing people like Dr. Oz and also A.G. Collins, who's actually the head of the fraud task force. He's the attorney general.
Because I'm sure there's some individuals in the Somali community that helped all the others do the fraud. And I think those key individuals were being helped by people in our deep state to set up the fraud. So if they follow the links all the way, it'll start lead to the dark side of the CIA, for example.
The fraud task force, so we're going to be interviewing him as well. And right now, because of the celebration that's taking place, the layers are layering the hard way. We're doing 25% off the entire site, so you can go to antifraudclub.com and use code.
The thing is, so many things are going wrong for the deep state on so many different levels at the same time. Like, think of all the stuff that's coming to light, Pizzagate coming to light, they can't deal with all of it. Their resources to deal with any of it is at the same time going down. Think of it behind the scenes, all the chaos they're having to deal with in the derivative markets. which the entire U.S. Ponzi scheme, the financial markets are becoming more and more unstable, and just managing that is requiring more and more effort. Less resources available for other projects, like trying to silence and shut down this anti-fraud investigations.
To buy one, I probably should buy one of these hoodies. I've watched all of the videos. I feel like I need to buy a hoodie.
Leering, and you're gonna get 25% off. And now let's see what the people have to say. Look at all the press. Look at them. Look at them. Look at all these things that never actually reported on the fraud that was taking place.
Oh, they're
here they are. And look, we even have our op. We even have our op CNN right there. She investigated me versus investigating the fraudsters. In fact, her investigation on the fraud was to call the fraudsters and say, "Hey, are you guys committing fraud?"
And they said no.
And obviously they said no, but we know that it was different because we
What,
did
they
the
lied?
real work.
We're from
Wait,
CNN.
they can
Can we
lie?
talk to you? This is MAGA YouTuber Nick Shirley. Back at a daycare in
MAGA YouTuber.
Minnesota, he alleged was a fraudulent facility in a now viral video. How do you know
Yes,
that?
the CNN reporter that did all this tried to smear Nick Shirley and poo-poo the story. She's now there reporting on all these people going to jail.
The allegations that you're making are true.
How do I know
It's
that?
fucking obvious, bitch. It's fucking obvious. Everybody knows it.
Yep.
True. Well,
Duh.
we showed you guys
Look at it.
we showed you guys what was happening, and then you guys can go ahead and make your own analysis.
We're coming so we can make our own analysis. Are you 100% sure you're true?
Yeah, I am 100% sure I'm true.
CNN is looking into Shirley's claims.
Hi, my name's Whitney Wild. I'm a correspondent for CNN.
We reached out to several of the daycares featured in the now viral video.
Yeah.
Only one daycare facility answered and said they are a legitimate business.
Oh, bro. Damn.
Damn.
Now it's spread throughout the entire country, not just the U.S. We've heard from people
Case
from New
closed.
Zealand, Australia, Sweden, Japan, every.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear about that, what he's talking about, this type of fraud in other countries. I'm sure it happens, but yeah, I don't, I think it was mainly happening in the United States.
Where they're finding the same.
I'm so mad that Trump doesn't go after these media companies more. I think he should. They're so obviously biased, and they're trying to protect literal criminals.
But those media companies are actually protecting Trump now in regard to the Iran war. Just saying. And he has tried going after them. He has sued them, and he has done other stuff, but it's not that the media is the pillar of the deep state's power. It's going to defend it to the end.
It's so
sorts of
annoying.
fraud.
These two people right here, we did the dirty work
No.
that all these people
did it.
are supposed to do, but they didn't.
Yeah.
We did it.
Now let's see what they have to say.
There it is.
Today, we are announcing criminal charges against 15 defendants in Minnesota for fraud schemes that targeted over $90 million in taxpayer dollars. Our cases today involve 7 different state-managed Medicaid programs that have been systematically pilfered by fraudsters who treated Minnesota-run programs as their personal piggy bank. One defendant is charged with defrauding the Integrated Community Supports Medicaid program. One patient was supposed to be receiving 24-hour care through this program, but he was actually being serviced by a fraudster
Wow.
and received no services. This
Fraudster let a patient die and kept building.
patient was
Billy.
later found dead.
Damn.
Meanwhile, the architect
Without-
of this fraud
Yeah, this fraud is killing people.
scheme was billing Medicaid as if he was
Embarrassing.
providing care to this patient. The defendant even submitted a claim of over $400 for services he never provided the day before this man died.
Today's arrests represent the largest autism fraud bust in American history.
So far.
So they just went in and they announced all the fraud cases.
RFK Jr. is definitely getting him in to the government. That alone was worth a second Trump term.
This is the biggest autism fraud that's ever been exposed in Minnesota, and I think potentially in the country.
Think about this. Think about how much Nick Shirley was able to uncover. And think about the fact that Nick Shirley doesn't have any of the levers, buttons, and tools that the FBI or anybody in the government has access to. And he doesn't have a formal education or background in fraud analysis or accounting.
That's me. I didn't have any background in researching fraud either.
Think about how bad it really is. This is literally just a random
All you have to
guy.
do is
It's like,
look.
this looks kind of weird.
And you'll find it.
And what my point is, it's not to like downplay him. My point is that imagine how much of this is really going on by people that aren't functionally retarded. We're talking about billions of dollars that are getting pissed down the drain in order for these scammers to make money. It's outrageous how bad it is.
So right here, Robert Kennedy's showing this graph. 2020, it was all normal, and underneath the Biden administration, numbers just been
Justice for these
And usually, yeah, the Biden administration let it happen. That's how so they can fund bringing in new voters. That's why they do.
without
also the
a need. All fraud. All right, David. So they just had the largest autism fraud.
Well, I just want to use this opportunity to showcase some of the things I researched back, some of the fraud I uncovered. Let's go to the big ones. This is just how the ESF, the Exchange Stabilization Fund of the Treasury, that is in charge of defending the dollar's value. This slush fund was used from its very beginning as seed money to conduct secret operations. You can pause the video and read all this. This is the agency that I think is at the heart of the deep state. It's from where all the rot emanates from. This is a Federal Reserve transcript where the Fed talks about selling put options on Treasury securities, huge amounts. And it also states here that the desk is what the Fed uses to interact with the market. Sold options on RPs for the weeks around the century date change that total nearly 0.5 trillion in notional value. By the way, if you go to the Fed's website and you look, it says right on the website, it says the Fed does not historically deal in derivatives. They claim they're not doing anything in derivatives. So yet this Federal Reserve transcript proves otherwise. And then they talk about how to manipulate long-term interest rates, like the 10-year Treasury. We could sell put options on longer-term Treasury securities at strike prices associated with desired long-term yields. So this is the Treasury secretly, the Fed secretly going out into the market and selling put insurance, selling insurance on U.S. Treasuries, making them seem safer. And they get fees for that. They collect fees. It's highly risky, and it's basically selling insurance on your own debt to make it safer. Like say, I'll go out, I sell a bond for $10 million, and then to make myself pay less interest rates, I go out and secretly tell people, I'll insure this debt that this guy over there is selling. So if he defaults, I'll protect you on that. But even it's insane. And then you have auctioning derivatives is something we already have experience doing. And in the event that the options were ever exercised, the impact on the portfolio would be profound. That's another way to say if things go wrong, basically the dollar could be completely fucked. And this is insane. The more options sold, the better. A large volume of options sold could reduce risk premiums embedded in long-term rates. The more sold, the more effective. Ultimate success would hinge on the quantity of options sold, how big a bet the Federal Reserve were willing to make. The more options sold, the greater the chance they would have the desired effect on long-term rates. The risk to portfolio, to reserve levels, and of capital losses would rise in equal measure. A decision to stop selling more options or not to issue new contracts would likely be very disruptive and send yields sharply higher. What this basically says is when the Fed lowered interest rates to zero, in order to boost the economy, it practically guaranteed started doing this, selling put options on treasuries. And this has likely done that ever since because there's no way to stop doing that without having interest rates on treasuries go up. And so you have the Fed secretly messing around to huge level in derivative markets, and no one ever talks about that. It's right there on the Fed's website. It's one of those stories that really should get some attention. Just saying. And I just wanted to mention that I've been covering stories that really should be getting more attention, that should be getting mainstream media coverage, and they never did.
Fraud bust in American history. Future Learning Center, where they received $3.67 million. She's now been charged. What's your overall thoughts on what you just heard?
So This is the beginning. And like I've always contended, when the dust settles on this fraud in Minnesota is going to be $80 billion going back to about 1988. And the speed with which these investigations are occurring is unprecedented. I'm shocked at how quickly they're making these arrests, and they're going to...
It's obvious. The thing is that they literally just let it happen. It was obvious the entire time.
Find the money.
Citation, please. Oh, what are you one of those people like, oh no, there's no fraud. Oh, there's a little bit of fraud. Oh, there's not that much. Okay, so there's some fraud. Well, fraud happens. Well, fraud's good. Stop it. Just stop.
And the fraudsters are running scared.
Please.
There was literally a fraudster who they went to go arrest this morning who jumped out of a 4-story building to escape.
Yeah, it looked like he broke his ankle or his leg because he was hobbling. So, and that's exactly what he deserves.
Mohammed Omar.
I don't think that's what he deserves.
Last name was Omar. What a coincidence.
Yes. What a coincidence.
So, Dr. Oz, we just had the press conference. The largest autism fraud in America history took place here inside of Minnesota. And there's a bunch of other fraud as well. One of the Lears as well was charged as well. What does this say about how the fraud was able to happen, and then what you guys are doing now to make sure that it does not continue to happen?
When you have fraud of this magnitude, you can't play man-to-man. You need zone defense, which means an all-of-government approach. So when President Trump said, we're creating a White House anti-fraud task force, and he puts the vice president in charge of it, everybody listens. So if I get called and I've got a little data that shows that there's something fishy going on with autism billing because it's gone from a few million to $400 million, which literally happened, I noticed that, but I got to do something with it. So I can call, for example, the Department of Justice or the FBI or the Office of Inspector General, and I can get folks, boots on the ground, to go start knocking on doors like you did, by the way. You're basically deputized because you were identifying clues that this was legit.
What I was saying earlier about deputizing people?
Deputizing people, yes.
This is exactly what we need to do. Bring it back. Bring back letters of marque. Bring back deputizing random people. Bring back bounty hunting. Bring it all back.
The problem is, anything you propose, you always have to think, how would the deep state co-opt it? Because it always tries to. And if deputizing random people, deep state is immediate response will be, how can we make sure that our people are the ones deputized? And that then we can control the whole process. And so you can't just go out to deputize random people, because if you try to do that, they won't actually be random people. They will be selected people by those who want to cover up this fraud. So you have to be careful with this. Astrogold's still operating in the world that there isn't a conspiracy behind all this. And if there is a conspiracy behind all this, yeah, that conspiracy reacts and tries to counter your moves.
Legitimate fraud happening, not just some embarrassing numbers. And then you have Treasury involved because they can do forensic accounting.
Astrogold may have no idea how big it fucking is, but he's reached the same point as I have with some of the stuff I saw during the financial crisis, in that he's having a hard time believing. He said it's by design in the other day. He's believing that there's some level of coordination in the government specifically to enable this fraud. And then he has to ask, why is that happening? Why? What's the motive? Why are people in the government actually trying to help Somalis commit massive fraud? And, well, one day when he's actually interested in that, I can give him the answer. It's because it's obvious to me. It's to mass smuggle cash out of the United States, to dollarize the world, to spread U.S. dollars. Because that's the way the United States can print money without having inflation, is you print the money, and then some Somali that commits massive fraud and smuggles that money out of the country. And it's the amount of dollars in the United States stays the same. And those dollars are floating around in Somalia or Libya or somewhere in the Middle East.
And say, you know what, these lowlifes are stealing money. They're bad. But what about the folks above them? The people who create the shell companies that hide the funds, they take it overseas, fund terrorist organizations. Who knows? You don't actually know the answer to these questions because you don't know where the money's going. But people who are sophisticated enough to defraud this government are often not from America. Yep. They're often foreign criminal organizations or even foreign governments. And that's why beginning to identify how the fraud happens is so important to us, because these guys, they've corrupted the system. They know how to take money out of the U.S. healthcare programs out there. We cannot, as Americans who love these programs and our fellow Americans, let them be hurt by this.
That's true.
How essential are these programs?
Well, it might be foreign governments setting up this fraud. They have advisors from the CIA helping them do all that, but it's again, there's less risk if it's Somali committing this fraud. They don't care about the United States. They don't care they're ripping out the United States. So it's much easier to get foreigners to defraud and harm the United States than it is U.S. citizens.
Programs actually, because I mean,
Just
think
one
about how
state,
much
yeah. Is that
money
Dr.
was
Ross?
gone to
Yeah, it is.
fraudsters. How did it go on for so long where people were able to steal, or where the budgets were able to go up by 1,000% when the enrollments didn't even go up? I know these are very important, but how was that happening where there was these huge
We need the SAVE Act, voter ID, no mail-in voting. It would help so much to cleaning out. Massey might not have lost if there was we had decent election system.
increases in the budgets, and where these fraudsters were literally just looting?
Nick, in our culture, when I look you in the eyes and I tell you I'm going to do something, you expect me to do it, and I hold you accountable as well. That's just who we are. During COVID, two major things happened. First, the government said we're not going to keep track for a while because there's a national
There
emergency.
needs to be an acknowledgement that when you bring people from places that aren't like that into our place, they don't change. And when you
Culturally and especially religion, no one ever changes their religion when they immigrate to a country. And that creates conflict because religion is tied to everything else culturally, and all your traditions, all your values. Like Muslims don't like dogs, for example. It's in there because of the religion. And America is a dog-loving nation, for example, and Europe too. It creates conflict.
you bring a lot of them that don't assimilate, then they really don't change.
Yes, if you bring in enough so that they form their own enclaves and can just speak among themselves, in that case, they often don't even bother to learn the language.
But that taught people they could steal. And then we began to get politically correct about the things we're saying, which is specifically what happened here in Minnesota, which I heard from Faye, a whistleblower Democrat serving in the Department of Health here, who said, I was pointing out that there were problems happening. And not only were they not listening to me, they were scared. They didn't want to be accused as being racist. And then once people realized they couldn't speak about the truth, well, then everything gets hit.
This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy.
And so we witnessed a combination.
It's actually crazy.
You know, to some extent, I'm sure that them setting up these Somali frauds to smuggle money out of the country, this is something that the deep state has set up over years. If you look, there was the first stories about Somali fraud back in 2015 even. And how do you protect that fraud? Well, you do this thing. You question it, you're racist. So maybe part of keeping this Somali fraud going was spreading identity politics. The purpose was to protect this deep state fraud. Because specifically in the democratic states. Because in democratic states is where you have politicians vulnerable to or scared of accusations of racism. So if you spread in the media and to colleges this racial theory, you can enable all types of fraud by foreigners like Somalis on the behalf of the deep state. So the two are definitely connected.
Crazy that he said that.
And so
White
we
supremacy.
witnessed a combination.
And yes, there's always been this leftist thing of identity politics, but it really only started taking off in like 2015 to an extreme level, like after Trump. And that could be that the Somali operations were spreading, and so in combination with needing to protect that, they focused hard on pushing identity politics and just fucking over our entertainment. Our entertainment industry was just a byproduct of the system.
Confluence of catastrophes that has allowed overall Medicaid spending in the whole country to go up by 50% in the last 5-6 years. And we're seeing a fourfold increase in things like pharmaceutical spending. Again, those are programs you can defraud more readily. And let me give you a couple numbers because I think this will actually, at some point, it gets almost entertaining that could get this bad. 1/3 of all hospices in the entire country are in Los Angeles. Again, how many people are dying?
So the entire country is 3, and this is Los Angeles? Is 1/3 of the country in Los Angeles? It's not, right? There's no way.
buying in LA. Hospice is where you go to pass away. They've defrauded that program.
Aspen Gold can do math.
In New York State, the number one job in the entire
It's
state
not. Okay,
is
fine,
now
go
being
on.
a personal care service worker, which is again the core of your question. These are jobs your family would do for you normally, like carrying the groceries upstairs or driving you to a doctor's office or giving you a place to stay if you're down and out. Now we're just paying people to
Well, sending dollars overseas, if that's through bank transfer, it's not physical dollars in most cases. The whole problem with dollarizing the world is how do you get dollars to like the failed states the CIA is overthrowing, like Libya, Syria? You need to get physical dollars there. And the charities aren't good ways to do that. You need mass smuggling of physical cash, either through drug trafficking or like the Somali operations. That's what you need to get the dollars into Syria, to dollarize those regions.
do that. So it's a jobs program. And so you begin to, as an American, question who was keeping track. Let me just answer that question for you real quick. My agency, who was in charge of at least doing the early warning, just looking at the numbers, was basically told, don't go after these bad guys. You got more important things to do. You got to just sign more people up for these programs. And so the total number of people involved in Medicaid fraud in our program integrity unit, 6 people. Just think of that. For the entire almost $1 trillion program, allocating money.
$1 trillion, and it's being managed by 6 people. Oh, what could go wrong?
Yeah, I know Plato's cave and the shadows on the wall being their whole world. And I like to think of it as more like your understanding of the world is like a puzzle. And you get one picture from the mainstream media, which is a puzzle that not all the pieces really fit together, and it doesn't really make sense in a lot of cases. But if you start turning over the pieces one by one and learning the truth, and you turn over all of them, then you can form a different picture, and everything fits into together perfectly. But if you just turn over one piece, then you're left with one piece that doesn't fit with the rest. It doesn't make any sense at all. Like, if you just know about Somali fraud, like, why the fuck is this happening? It's obvious the government was covering it up, complicit in it. Why would someone do that? It just doesn't make sense if you only know about the Somali fraud.
These programs, some of which are suspect, as you point out, there are 6 people in charge of it. That's not an accident. That's, effectively, it's either malevolently ignoring reality, or you just didn't care.
Yeah. And for instance, a lot of this fraud, like you said there, a lot of it's being done by people who aren't even from the United States. That's right. The Chinese mafia in New York City, the Russians in California, the Armenians as well. Here you had the Somalians in Minnesota. And we have David here with us. And David, how did you see this fraud? Because if it wasn't for you, a lot of this stuff would not be happening. If it wasn't for you noticing that there's no children at the daycare, how did you notice the involvement of, for instance, the Somali population come in and loot and steal from Americans?
Well, I started to see this prevalence of these childcare facilities around my office. Yeah. And they're always in these dark, dingy buildings. And I said, well, who's running all these childcare? Why do we need all these childcare facilities? So that's what started me looking into what's going on here, how many kids are going there. And so I'd go
That's the real unsung hero out of all this, is that, obviously Dr. Oz is doing great. Nick Shirley's great. But, none of this would have been possible without this guy. Just a random American citizen that had a concern for the way that his money was being spent unlocked all this. And people need to respect that. They do.
In the morning, no kids.
That's what I eventually want to do, is unlock a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, you go back to what I was saying about the Fed selling. You tell this to someone that's really genius on Wall Street type individuals, and they will poo-poo the Fed selling put options on treasuries. That they never do that. You just show this to some people high up, like someone like Elon Musk. Show this to Elon Musk, and he would wig out. He would completely freak out because he'd understand the importance.
Kids, I go in the afternoon, no kids, no footprints in the snow.
Where'd they go?
So when I started looking at the ownership of the childcare facilities, I said they're all Somali. And so then I said, well, I'm seeing all these vans driving around, and there's a Somali driver, and there's never any passengers. So I started looking at that, and then I realized it was autism, and that's why I depicted it as a wheel of fraud with the non-emergency medical transportation as a hub, and then child care is a fraud, autism's a fraud, a spoke of fraud on the wheel. And I realized this thing was so gigantic, it was like trying to wrestle a greased hippo. And I knew it wouldn't work if I tried to tackle the whole thing.
Wrestling a greased hippo.
So I had to pick a pressure point, and that pressure point was childcare, because I knew people were going to be pissed when they saw what was going on with childcare. And then we moved into the non-emergency medical transportation, and you can see the results now, and it's spawned not just a nationwide, but a worldwide investigation by people like us into fraud.
It's safe to say that the local government, Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison, they're complicit in allowing specifically the Somali population go through and commit this fraud because they knew they could then call out people for being a racist or Islamophobic.
There's no question that was a culture, certainly with
They knew they could, but you don't talk about why Tim Walsh was doing it. You think it was just for a few campaign contributions? No, this was part of and Tim Walsh doesn't. These also, it's not just Minnesota fraud. Federal funds were mixed in, were being paid out to these Leering centers, for example, and so that doesn't explain why on the federal level they were going along with this fraud too. They don't mention that. You need some type of wider conspiracy to explain how this fraud reached this scale.
Then the department in charge of these programs that stymied open talk. You were intimidated if you said anything that was even a little bit deemed as politically incorrect. And the specific issue around racism, which
isn't it crazy how they've just silenced everybody around the why? It's really insane to me that like anybody bought into this. It is like, it's shocking.
Heard from Faye was the biggest insult that you could ever make is to call someone a racist. And I think the biggest insult is that you're a liar and a cheat and you're taking advantage of your fellow man and trying to hurt them. And the fact that they lost their priorities on these issues, to me, is very concerning. It's one of the reasons that we've been actively looking at how we can investigate these programs more effectively. And to protect the federal taxpayer, we've had to look at what's been submitted to us and defer in this state, in Minnesota, defer $350 million. But in California, which might be the varsity team, the amount of problems we saw there forced us to defer $1.34 billion. That's a lot of money.
And he's right, too.
So these are the
kinds
of
he's right about
we're talking about. Can I just give you an affordability nexus here, just to sort of put in everyone's mind? Because a lot of people watching now, I hope, are working their tails off with the belief that one day, when they get to age 65, they could retire and enjoy the bountiful benefits of Medicare.
Exactly.
A beautiful safety net system, crown jewel of our program. They will help you.
No one... Unless you're like 5 years or less from death and you're at the very end of your life, you're not going to be enjoying Medicare in retirement. When the dollar goes down, when that type of collapse, when United States can't borrow endlessly from the world anymore, all the drastic cuts to all these programs.
Through all your healthcare expenses when you're getting to the retirement age.
But I completely encourage cracking down on the fraud, by the way. Yes, that would help. But still, long term, these programs are somewhat doomed.
The life expectancy of that program is so short now that a lot of people your age, Nick, don't think it's going to be there for them. Do you have an opinion? Do you think Medicare will be there for you?
At this rate, no.
No, it won't. I guarantee you. Not in the way it currently is. Hey, Sound by Soma, how are you doing? It's a very confusing and in the air situation in the Middle East right now. No bombs flying yet, hopefully. Trump loves to bomb in the middle of negotiations, so you never know. But so far, we just looked at it, a breaking Iran deal. And depending on two different readings, two entirely different set of facts have been agreed on too. It's crazy. So I have no idea what's going on. On the one hand, according to Israeli media, basically Iran's caved to all of Trump's demands. And according to the initial reporting, it was Trump that caved to all of Iran's demands. So I have no clue what's going on with the agreement that supposedly happened today. Yeah, it's been a very weird situation. There's speculation the drones that came here were of Israeli origins. Yes, the ones that hit the power plant, I heard that. Just because, just the vector they were coming in, the directions, it was from Iraq. And if I remember, Israel has 2 bases in Iraq. So, hard to tell, right? It's, But there hasn't been, that was the nuclear power plant attack you're talking about, right? There hasn't been much since then. Well, I have to see. I don't even know what to make about the latest, like the Iran deal, depending on which version of it you hear. It's actually hilarious. It's worth hearing again. Okay, Trump announces New Deal.
In Trump's post, he said the Strait of Hormuz will be open, so that's something. But I'll give you what the concessions are saying. So
here's one source of what was just agreed to.
An Al Jazeera journalist, I know him well, he's been on the show a few times. He said the deal includes, that's unconfirmed, but it'll be wild if true, an end of the regional war on all fronts, including Lebanon. Fine, expected. Billions of Iranian assets unfrozen. Remember when he was attacking Obama for doing this? Yeah, apparently that's included. Lifting of the U.S. naval blockade, fine. Opening the Strait of Hormuz under Iranian management.
Presumably with tolls for Iran.
So not sure if there'll be tolls, but I would expect there'll be tolls. Withdrawal of the majority of American forces from the Middle East. After this, the two sides will have 30 days to find an agreement on the nuclear issue, but this time frame can be extended if mutual.
So that's one version of what was agreed to. But then you have the second.
Don't know of any casualties whatsoever. The Secret Service shot this will go towards central Ukraine. Journalists from there. Days for negotiations regarding the nuclear issue.
Here we go.
Israeli media.
This is from Israel media. This is how Israel media is reporting this deal.
Ukraine front. And the latest update, which you are reading on the Iran deal front, according to my sources, an agreement will be reached in the coming days. That's Channel 14, Israeli media, journalists from there. Iran will open the Strait of Hormuz without charging any fees. The U.S. will not transfer any money to Iran at all. And that is very significant. Wow.
So no unfreezing of assets.
Another 60 days for negotiations regarding the nuclear issue. The sanctions will remain in place, except for some easing of oil-related sanctions. Lebanon will also be part of the agreement. So
it's very different. It's nearly opposite. When I get this is within the span of 2 hours. These two reports. Which one is it? Did Iran cave? Did Trump cave? I have no fucking idea. So, well, we'll have to wait till tomorrow till we get more details on who agreed to what. Then I'll be able to form an opinion. So I'm not optimistic. Just the fact that there's these two reported different set of agreements makes it seem like the two sides are very far apart still. And are we really getting an agreement? Yeah. So, but I have said that until the end of the month, till the 31st, there is that pilgrimage going on in Saudi Arabia. And so Saudi Arabia is not going to be excited to restart its hostilities until, June. So there's that angle too, but Trump could always override that. TACO. Yes, it might be a TACO. It was TACO by someone, if either versions of this is true. We'll have to see. Right now we're watching a video on the Somali fraud situation, and there are people actually going to jail. For defrauding government of billions of dollars, and so that's nice. That's some good news, at least for the United States. It doesn't really impact Dubai, but it's the Middle East still seems a mess to me.
I mean, if we continue to get looted, unless you do something about it, we're not going to have it.
Well, I'm going to make this commitment because I've run these numbers.
Man.
If we can take out the fraud from Medicare, just the Medicare, not the whole $100 billion of fraud we think exists, but just in Medicare, we will double the life expectancy of the Medicare Trust Fund. That's the part of your paycheck that you pay every month or every week towards making sure that you have Medicare coverage for the country. We will double the life expectancy of that. So you'll have it, your kids will
Don't you feel great paying that? No. Knowing you're never going to get it.
Have it, and hopefully their kids will have it. And we don't have to charge you extra tax. We don't have to go after anyone's home. We don't have to, knock out people from playing the game of life in America. We just have to take the fraud out. That's our job. It's our duty. It's our responsibility.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Oz. Now we're going to go talk with Attorney McDonald about specifically what they found here in Minnesota. Thank you very much. The fraud here in Minnesota has been going on for so long, for so many years, and today, finally, these fraudsters are held accountable. What exactly did you guys get these fraudsters on?
Today we've announced charges against 15 fraudsters here in Minnesota who were defrauding 7 different programs, Medicaid programs, and also a child care funding program here in the state of Minnesota. There's a range of charges for these defendants, including healthcare fraud, conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, wire fraud, and other fraud charges. Most of these charges, they'll carry maximum sentences of 5 years up to 20 years. And as we heard earlier,
and where's
today,
the money?
The architect of the Feeding Our Futures case was sentenced this morning for her role in defrauding USDA, and she was sentenced to 41 years in prison for her conduct, being the ringleader with that scheme.
So there's 50 people charged, 2 arrests. One man jumped out of a 4-story building. Last name's Omar. Don't know if that's coincidence or not with Ilhan, but he jumped out of a 4-story building. And now, can you kind of get into the specifics of, like, we know there's autism fraud, we know there's a child care fraud. What was the other fraud that these people were committing?
All of it.
So the fraud today was, it did involve autism. It involved in-home health services and also the housing stabilization services program. So that involved helping place homeless into homes. The core of it involves home health services for the elderly or the disabled. And so you have folks who will start a business to then be capable of billing Medicaid. They have to go out. They have to actually find real people. They got to find real patients who actually need these services. They get them on their books, and then they fail to give them the actual services. But what do? They still send Medicaid the bill. And that's a scheme that we've seen here. We see it replicated.
That is fraud, and it's evil.
Across the country. We also brought charges in a child care center in relation to a child care center today. And that's also a major focus of ours is the home health care programs, the food programs, the daycare programs, and then really everything else. But we see common themes of billing for services never provided.
Yep. Quality Learning Center. I still think that's hilarious that he couldn't even spell learning wrong.
Billing for patients that were never patients, or billing for children that were never children under the care of a particular daycare outfit.
What?
I think something that's powerful about today is you're seeing actual synergy between a citizen like myself who wouldn't expose the fraud and then the government coming in.
Yeah, no, it's great for Nick Shirley. It's terrible that the mainstream media is so incompetent that people like Nick Shirley are needed. Everything Nick Shirley was doing is what the media should have done. And it's the same in hundreds of other cases of fraud. It's the media systematically covering up every type of fraud under the sun. But now we're having more and more YouTubers going out and covering these things, and commentators like Asmongold spreading awareness. We're gotten to the point where we can bypass mainstream media, and that's causing all types of problems to those organizing the fraud, and it's wonderful. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.